I like mini PCs. It's no secret. Get the Minisforum UM750L Slim. This is based on the Ryzen 5 7545U. This is inexpensive and it's also on sale, so it's even lower than its original introduction price. This configuration is 16 gigabytes of memory and 1 terabyte of storage. We're going to run some benchmarks on it. We're going to see how it does thermally, but mini PCs are a lot of fun. And mini PCs are about to get way more powerful computationally and graphics wise, you know, a generation or two over the next year or so. But $300, it's hard to pass up. Alright, I like the packaging. It's biodegradable. Alright, at the back we've got 2.5 gig LAN, HDMI, USB 4 DisplayPort, and 2 USB 2. At the front we've got 2 USB 5 gigabit. So this is a relatively modest configuration. This is a 65 watt power brick. 2-pin power connection. You got some extra feet should you take this thing apart. You also have a VESA mounting bracket for mounting this on the back of a display. And a short HDMI cable, which is also useful if you're going to mount this on the back of a display. You can build your own all-in-one computer, mount this on the back of a display, and that's a nice low headache, low mess solution. Now the Ryzen 7545U processor in here is special. It's 6 cores, 12 threads. It's 2 Zen 4 cores and 4 Zen 4C cores. So the 2 Zen 4 cores can boost up to 4.9 gigahertz, almost 5 gigahertz in this little package on 2 cores. The other 4 cores are Zen 4C. They don't boost quite as high. Then we take the bottom off. You can see we've got dual 2280. The first 2280 is populated by our Kingston 1 terabyte drive. It's PCIe Gen 4. This is a workstation device. It's a 0M8 TAP4 1024, which is 1 terabyte capacity. So this is a PCIe Gen 4 SSD. It just barely uses more bandwidth than PCIe Gen 3. Our Crystal Diskmark results for this SSD are competent. This is also not an upgradable platform in terms of memory. Now you can add another 2280, another terabyte, or 2 terabytes, or 4 or 8 terabytes, whatever you want to do. And it does have sufficient cooling. I really like the cooling solution that Minisforum has for these. It's a fan, it's active cooling. You have a mechanical metal connection to your 2280 SSDs. Underneath your other 2280 SSD is your Wi-Fi solution, which is also replaceable. So if you Wi-Fi 802.11 QQQ comes out, you could replace that and be able to run, whatever the new hotness is for that standard. But you probably won't. It's about $300 US at the time that I'm doing this video, depending on how far in the future it is and global situations, maybe more, maybe less. But these mini PCs are basically disposable, which is their strength and also their weakness. Like you buy this is a Zen 4, we're on Zen 5, Zen 6 for servers is getting ready to come out at the time that I'm doing this. And so the platform is also mature, which is good for stability. It's good in terms of Linux compatibility, but 6 cores, 16 gigabytes of memory, but also inexpensive. You're all in for $300. You could plug this into a TV and use it as a media center. You could replace Windows with Linux. $300. It's a good deal for $300, but bear in mind that you get 2 years out of this, maybe 3. You're not going to take it to 32 gigabytes of memory or 64. There are other mini PCs that have upgradable RAM. This is Zen 4 and Zen 4C. But let's actually do some testing and some experimentation, because why not? Does this platform support 3 displays? It does. DisplayPort, USB-C, you can use native USB-C. I'm going to try the USB-C, USB 4 with our Thunderbolt compatible, well, Thunderbolt enclosure from Cooler Master, but USB 4 is Thunderbolt compatible. It's not truly Thunderbolt, just keep that in mind. But you can use USB-C to DisplayPort if you don't plan to use it, or into a monitor like this that has native USB-C in, you get USB and DisplayPort over the one connection, so that's pretty nice. And then of course HDMI, and so I've got an HDMI connection to this monitor for now. So even though this is a mobile platform turned into a mini PC, it still has a pretty featureful BIOS, so let's do a quick BIOS tour. One of the big advantages of this platform with the integrated RAM, even though it is not upgradable, it is 6400. Very nice memory speed. It does have all the features you'd expect in terms of wake on LAN and wake by real-time clock. You can configure that in the BIOS. There's also PCIe options. You can turn on AMD's RAID so that you can do that kind of a RAID, but generally I don't recommend that. If you're running Linux, Linux MD would be better, and on Windows, the drivers are a little suspect. But you can disable Wi-Fi, for example, or the LAN, or certain physical hardware ports in case these aren't going to be in a physically secure location. The BIOS does expose the AMD CBS menu, so you've got CPU common options, Northbridge, FCH, and SMU options that you'd expect from the AMD CBS menu. It also supports net booting, so if you want to boot off of the network and configure that, you totally can. Alright, we got our testing done and out of the way. 2478 single core score, 8780 for our multi-core score. It's a pretty modest multi-core score result, but remember this is a Ryzen 5. Also, this is about a $300 platform. Remember that the N100 and N305 based platforms are also in the $200 to $300 range. And the real world performance of this is running circles around those platforms. Zen 4C as the low cost alternative, like the down stack option from Team Red, is serious competition for Team Blue for applications like this. So for office tasks, productivity tasks, data entry, using the internet, online banking, those type of tasks, this is a good platform for that. It's not going to leave you wanting much more. 16 gigabytes in a Linux context, I'm a lot more confident in than a Windows context, especially when we're talking about that 3 to 5 year time scale. If you think you can get 5 years out of a platform like this, who knows what browser technology and that sort of thing is going to be here, on down the road. I was a little surprised that GPU-Z didn't report more information about the onboard graphics. The onboard graphics is good enough to do Steam streaming. You can do hardware decode with it, but that's basically it. The default BIOS configuration from Minisforum has 2 gigabytes of memory reserved. It is, on a fully updated software platform, it is technically a unified memory architecture, but you might benefit from specifying 4 gigabytes, especially if you have older or legacy software that doesn't understand UMA, because you have to have software that takes advantage of the plumbing that's there in the hardware for DirectX 12 or Vulkan. In terms of native gaming, I wouldn't. There's always people in the comments that are like, oh yeah, you totally run Dota 2 at 1080p, or some other esports title. I can play Monster Train at 1080p. You could. It's okay, but there's a lot better alternatives that are only a little bit more that probably would be worth looking at if you're also looking for something for light gaming. Our memory bandwidth is about 50 gigabytes per second. Our memory latency is a disappointing 115 nanoseconds, but for this kind of a platform in the use case, it's fine. That also negatively impacts the gaming performance a little bit, because if the memory timings were a little tighter, if you had a little bit lower latency, you could get a few more FPS, especially at 1080p low, but I digress. USB 4. I was super excited about USB 4. It seems to have the USB 4 PCIe tunneling chipset. However, you can't enable resize bar on the integrated GPU, even with the resize bar option in the BIOS. There may be a BIOS update to fix that. If there is, look for a pinned comment below. But that's one of the downsides sometimes with Minisforum. Now, Minisforum has grown tremendously over the last 3 years as people explore mini PCs. And there are BIOS updates, and they do have a much better support system than they did 2, 3, 4 years ago. But that said, they're still kind of a niche player in this market. That's kind of the trade-off. When you don't buy, a giant name brand mini PC for hundreds of dollars more, typically, you're going to lose a little bit in support or BIOS updates or things like that. That said, Minisforum has been improving, and there may be a BIOS update that fixes that. And so if there is, I will do an update for this or pin a comment below, so look for that. But resize bar being disabled, Windows means that when I plug in my external GPU here, it can't allocate bar space. Windows struggles, and it'll sometimes lock up the machine. There's also not a lot of options in BIOS for configuring the USB 4 options. Minisforum didn't expose the options for configuring aspects of the USB 4 chipset. And so my Radeon 7 test, which is a little bit of a loaded test, I'll admit, there's some technical stuff we can dive into to talk about that specifically, does not work. I also tried a Thunderbolt dock. So Minisforum actually has this really awesome TB401. This is like an amazing Thunderbolt travel dock. Like, it's small enough to be a travel dock or just a regular Thunderbolt dock. It's got built into 2.5 gig Ethernet. I've got a separate review on this that is already up or will be up soon. This does 85 watts of power delivery, USB 3.2 Gen 2, it's DisplayPort 1.4. There's a lot to like about this Thunderbolt 4 docking solution, the 12-in-1 docking solution. And so I tried that with this also. I'm going to say that USB 4 for PCIe tunneling and Thunderbolt on this platform is a no-go. There is a path to get it working. I think it can work with the BIOS update. If you're willing to use Linux, it seemed like it was going to work, but I don't know if it was going to be 100% stable. In Linux, I have to renumber the PCIe devices, and I have to manually move around some stuff in the bar space at kernel boot up time, which is always a little, depending on the kernel version and a bunch of other things, it's always a little bit suspect. So I'm telling you, don't bother. Like, you'd be better off spending your time on something else and paying a few bucks more for another platform that I've actually tested with working fully okay USB 4 for docking reasons or adding external peripherals via USB 4. Disappointing, but using it as a USB port, a USB Type-C port, no problems. Using it as USB-C to DisplayPort, also no problems. So if you're not worried about trying to add a dock to add more ports or more functionality to this mini platform, none of that applies to you. This is fine. This is not cause for concern. This is totally okay. It's pretty badass little machine for what it is, for the cost and everything else. If there's an option to opt for the 32GB version, definitely do it. But beyond that, don't really have any specific recommendations for you. This is a nice little mini PC that'll get you to where you're going in terms of light office and productivity tasks. And Wendell Level 1 has been a quick look at Minisforum and some color commentary on Minisforum products in general. Hopefully you found that useful. If you have any questions or want to weigh in, or even just share your experiences, if you've bought Minisforum stuff and you've had a good or bad experience, weigh in below or in the Level 1 forums, or on the internet somewhere. I'll see it. I'm Wendell Level 1. I'm signing out. You can find me in the Level 1 forums.